Thanks for that nice message, Cheryl. I'm very honored to be here today. I'm humbled, actually, because in this room is so much power. Just, I mean, to see all these amazing women, and I'm sure men, but today we're focusing on women. But I mean, the power in this room, I can feel it, the energy, the just being positive. It's amazing. And so I just wanted to say that, and I feel honored and humbled to be a keynote speaker, because there are people here that have accomplished so many things, and they're better speakers than me. This is not my forte, but I'm going to do the best I can do, and what I plan to do is just tell my story, basically. Cheryl said that I came from very humble beginnings. That's kind of an understatement. I was born in 1954 to two parents who were 44 years old. They had an 8th grade education. They came from Louisiana. My dad was in a mine explosion there and lost his hearing in one ear. So he came to Galveston, Texas. That's actually where I grew up. And he became a longshoreman. But he couldn't work all the jobs because of the hearing loss in one ear. My mom was a seamstress. She took in sewing, and so needless to say, money was very tight. There were 5 children. I was the youngest of 5 children. And, you know, and I got the sneaking suspicion since they were 44 that I might not have been planned. But all 5 of my siblings, 4 of my siblings and myself, attended Holy Rosary Catholic prison. School. And I joke about that because if any of you attended Catholic school back in the 50s or 60s, you know, I see hands, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I felt like, well, the nuns, for one thing, they picked on us a lot, my family. And I didn't quite understand why at the time, but my mom did the altar clothes, she did the altar boys' uniforms, she worked for the nuns, my dad chauffeured the nuns around, my brothers cleaned the schoolyard, and I often wondered why were we indentured servants to the church. And the nuns were very hard on me. They were always saying, you know, you really don't believe you belong here. If you only knew, you'd be very grateful to be here. You've got a rebellious spirit. You need to take down that spirit and control it. And you know, it was always these things kind of to put me in my place. What I found out later was that my parents were actually ordering for us to go, and I get choked up about it because it was such a sacrifice for them to work and clothe themselves and to go and do that so that we could get a good education. And, you know, they were just remarkable. And that was why they started, you know, doing the things or saying the things that they were saying, because we were like the poor kids there. And they felt like we didn't fit in. And what I found is, you know, the topic of my conversation today, I guess, is, you know, turning the things that are adversities and hardships into something positive. And the thing that I get from that experience is that I became a warrior at 5. I refused to let them take my spirit. That's a terrible thing to say to a kid. And I fought it. And I kept this up till 6th grade. And I decided then that I would never let anyone decide for me who I am or what I was. What money, economic situation, whatever. And it has really served me well because I didn't have the example from my parents. They were just humble Louisiana people that spoke with really thick accents, and they didn't go up and fight for me, but I had to fight for myself. So that adversity turned into something that I used throughout my life as a tool. And I prayed with my mother before I came up, and she was saying, talking about discovering your gifts. And that was a gift to me that I didn't realize at the time, and it turned out to be one. There were many things in my life that were tools and gifts. That's what I like to refer to them as, because I left that school and I went to public school and I loved it. And then in junior high, I joined a singing group. And we were known as much for our costumes as we were our talent. But I learned how to make clothes. My mom and I would make the costumes. And I, just singing in this group and practicing and doing the outfits and all of that was preparing me for what I do later. I didn't know it at the time, but it was a tool, another gift. I left there and, I admire people who know exactly what they want to do when they get out of school. I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to go to college, I want to be a nurse or whatever. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I didn't have a lot of role models that were around to influence me. But I just knew that I wanted to get out of Galveston. And I wanted to get out of a little small town, and I wanted to do something that related to beauty or something to making women feel good about themselves. So I went to California and I actually got a job as a makeup artist for a Japanese company, which was really funny because everybody was Japanese except me. And that was because they needed someone who would go into the African-American stores and work, and that the customers were allowed to work on them. So that was a great experience for me, another tool, that I didn't know at the time. I went on to work at a Worldwide Health Studios. I don't know if any of you remember that. Back in the day, it was the first health studio. I worked there for 3 years. I lived in Denver. I did a little modeling. I learned how to walk in heels. All of these were tools that came back to me that I didn't know that I was getting at the time. And that's how God works. Sometimes you don't understand it, but He is giving you things that you can take out of the toolbox and give you. After this, I did all these things, and I met my future husband. We got married, and even that was such a challenge because we got married, and I was so excited about my dad walking me down the aisle and had a heart attack the day before we got married. He had a minor heart attack. And so we all went to the hospital after the wedding and brought the wedding party, and he was rushing us out, and we left, and the next day we were supposed to go on a honeymoon, and we missed the flight. So I called back and they said, oh, your dad is in intensive care. He's had a massive heart attack. So we left the airport and went straight to Galveston. My dad was really bad, and we spent the day there as much as we could, and I decided to stay. So my ex-husband went back to the house because his parents were in town, and he calls me crying, and he says his grandfather has died. So it's like, okay, what's going on here? By Wednesday, my daddy is stable enough so that I can go to the funeral. So I go to the funeral on Thursday, and when I got back on Friday, my mom was in intensive care. It was really a tough time. And so within 6 months of that time, well, I have to say that my ex-husband said, you don't have to work. You can go and take care of your parents, which I treasure to this day because in 6 months, my mom had passed away. So then I was pregnant. So I didn't go back to work for 4 years. I didn't work. And I just kept my daughter. And then things got really rocky, and my marriage got very tumultuous, and I was having all these problems, and I was like, what have I done? I've been on a job market for 4 years. Self-esteem low, just like, what do I do now? In the process of that time, I have to say that I had started beauty school, and I had maybe 3 months to last with that. But as I got pregnant, after I got pregnant, my marriage just got really bad, and I knew I had to do something. So I got very focused about going to school. And after I had the baby, by the time I had the baby, I had a clientele. Cheryl and Juanita and a lot of you, I see a lot of my old clients here. I built a little salon at my house, and I do hair, and I built up my clientele. And 8 weeks after I had my baby, I took her to her grandmother, her paternal grandmother, and I said, listen, you got to keep it because I got to open a business because I would never be in this position again. I would never be totally dependent on someone. I would never give up myself. So anyway, I opened my business, and it was such a success story because it was just me and my niece and one young lady, Ada. And if anybody remembers the business, it just flourished. It took off because it was a labor of love. I love making women feel good. I do. I know I'm a crybaby, I'm sorry. But I love making women feel good. And it was an opportunity to do it, and do it in a big way. And, during that time, Juanita can attest to it, she would come and pray with me because, I didn't know sometimes how I was going to, we were doing well, but still the overhead and all of that. She would say, build your business, say your prayers, keep God in it. And I did it, and it just flourished like crazy. It worked. And that adversity of me having this bad marriage caused me to go do something about my situation, which happens all the time. It's happened to me many times because I'm hard-headed, and I can get complacent, and I can start taking care of everybody else but myself. So, the story of Destiny's Child. They started, there were times, the first deal that they had, I was a person to go and open my big mouth to the people that signed them, and the guy told me, well, this is going to change their lives, and you should just stop being so square, and you should stop being so protective, and get with it, and because they were actually exposing the girls to things that I just didn't feel were appropriate for them to be so young. Well, he wound up telling me to get out of his office, take the kids home, and don't bring them back. So I'm devastated because I have to go and tell these kids that I messed up their deal. And so I wound up doing that. And, again, God just showed up because in 3 months they got a way bigger, better deal. And that has just been kind of the mantra of my life, that things have to happen. And I think one of the, even me starting my clothing line, there had to be turmoil. There had to be something that caused me to have to change to get up and do what I know that I need to do. And so I started the clothing line, and it was very successful, but I worked so hard that I kind of lost myself in it. I was doing videos, I was doing the clothing line, I was doing tours, and all the time I kept telling Cheryl, I really want to take some time to take care of myself. But it was always some new thing coming up, a new movie, a new opportunity. And opportunity sometimes can be not the best thing because when you need to stop and take care of yourself. Again, I was just hard-headed, just kept going, I kept doing. And then one day, my world just exploded. And I knew that I had to get a divorce. And at 58 years old, that's a very difficult thing. At any age, but at 58, it's impossible. It does something to your whole psyche, your whole self-esteem, because I had been married for 33 years. I had never, I hadn't known anything else. And, you guys know my story. My family is quite intertwined. So it was very difficult to untangle or detangle myself from it, but I knew that I didn't have a choice but to do that. I did, but it was a very hard time. It was a very hard time, and I was very sad. And the amazing thing is that, when you look at someone else, you look at them and you say, oh, they're attractive, and they got a lot of good stuff going for them, and they have no right to have low self-esteem. They have no right to feel sorry for themselves. Well, it doesn't matter who you are, what you've done, what you look like, what you have. You're a person, you're a human being. And when something strikes you like that, it takes the breath out of you. And you know, and my fight came back. You know, after a while, I let myself feel sorry for myself for a minute, and then I said, you know, I'm so blessed to have all the opportunities that I have, and I have the right to feel sorry. I started telling myself this, and I made a plan. You know, I said, what do you want, Tina? Well, I want some time off, so I took the time off. It gave me the courage to take the time off. I started reading my art books. I love art, but I had never had the time. I started traveling. I would travel with my daughter, but not to work. I'd say, no, I'm not working. I had my girlfriend who made me laugh. I sent for her. She would come and come on the road with me because she's as crazy as I don't know what. And we would go to museums and we would eat lunch and we would laugh. And, you know, I had just really forgotten how to live. I had just lost all of myself. So I realize now that part of the low self-esteem was, yes, being 58 and having to start all over again. The other part was just that I had lost myself. That I was so busy working and going and taking care of everybody else that I just forgot about Tina. And so I would tell my kids, you know what? You can call me and I'll be there if it's really something important, but otherwise, I'm taking care of Tina. This is my selfish moment. I started liking me again. I started being important, not everybody else. And so, you know, the whole thing about dating was the scariest thing in the world. And I would tell my friends, I'm never going to find somebody. By now I'm 59 years old. Where am I going to find? Where do you meet men? Like, and you're not, you know, what are you doing? And they're all, you know, and so it was really funny. So I just focused on myself. And finally, my friend told me, well, not my friend, a girl that worked with me said, this guy wants to take you out, and you know, he just thinks you're hot. Really? So she said, yes. So you know, my kids get me ready, and I call Cheryl, and I'm like, oh, I'm going on a date. I'm really nervous. I changed clothes 5 times. You know, I was like, I don't want to be too this, and I don't want to be too that. And well, I went out with a guy, and he was a very, very nice man, and thank God he wasn't my type because I wasn't nervous. As nervous once I met him, I was like, you know what, this is just like friend time. But it was so good for my self-esteem for somebody to say you look nice.
Yeah.
To give me a flower, to take me out. And so anyway, I went out, and then I went out on a couple more dates with him, but I knew that he wasn't the one. But it got me past that. And then it's ironic. This is really ironic, and I'm going to share it. I'm a very personal person, but I just feel like sharing this with you guys. So I hear that my ex-husband is getting married. Now, this is my family. My ex-husband is my family. So I'm just very, you know, I don't want to get back into that at all. That's not what I want, but still, it still hurts a little bit, right? It still belongs to your ego. So I call my crazy friend, Monica, and she comes to take care of me for the wedding. Now, in the meantime, my best friend, who she's here today, one of my best friends, Burnell, is getting married, and guess who the wedding planner is? And guess where the wedding reception is? The place that I built and decorated and made into the media center. And she insisted on that place because it was right across the street from St. John's. So I'm having to do photo shoots, I'm having to smile, I went to get her dress, I did a video, you know, all of these things, which was really tough for me, I have to tell you, because it's a week after my ex's wedding. So I'm going through all of this. So I call my friend, Monica, and she comes to San Francisco, no, we're in LA. And she says, oh, Tina, you gotta get out. You gotta get out. You know, let's go out. Let's go see some men. And I said, I don't know where to find them. So she gets on the phone and she calls this old friend of ours. And And this guy was, I've been knowing him for 33 years, and his sister was one of my best friends, and she died of breast cancer 20 years ago. But some of you might remember that I had a hair show one time, and I had this really handsome guy that was on Dynasty at the time. He was an actor, and he was on All My Children at the time, and I brought him down, and the women were crazy over him, and you know, he hosted my show. So anyway, he's an old friend like family. So she called him up, and he has an acting school. We went by his acting school, and he took us out to eat afterwards. And my friend says, "Okay, Richard, do you know any men?" And he's like, "Well, what's she looking for?" So I said, "Well, you know, I want somebody with integrity, that believes in God, that's, you know, likes to dance and likes to have fun and appreciates art." And he's like, "Oh, well, what about me?" And we both said, "Hell no." It's like, okay, well. So anyway, the next night he took us out dancing, and we just had a good time. The next night he came to the concert, and he said, "Well, can we get away from Monica? Because Monica takes over the conversation. We go to lunch." So we went to lunch. And he said, "I want to support you during this time," because I told him, I said, Matthew, he was friends with Matthew too. And he said, I said, "Well, he just got married yesterday." But look at the timing here. You know, before that time, I was not ready. The truth is, I just wasn't ready. I had had closure. And just talking about God being right on time, can you be more on time? The next day. And so we had this great lunch, and then after, you know, he said, "Well, I really want to support you through this time. I'm going to come to Houston." He came to Houston. I went to LA afterwards, and, you know, it's been now a year and 5 months, and I'm committed. With that handsome man. And I am the happiest I've been in a long, long time. It's just been a great journey, and just in wrapping up here, I just have to say that, you know, most of the times in my life that things have been the toughest and the worst, and I thought I would die and not get through them, they turned out to be the best times. Wow. And so if you're going through anything, if you've been through anything, I know it's all these women in here, and I'm speaking to you now because, you know, it just relates to my life. If you're going through it, just know it's called, like Juanita says, going through it. You're not going to get stuck there. You're not going to die. You're going to survive. You know, my daughter wrote a song called Survivor some years ago, and it's my favorite song by them because it says, you know, when the times get bad, I'm going to work harder. And I'm going to keep pushing. And I'm going to be positive, and I'm going to make it happen because I'm a survivor. That's been a story in my life. Starting back with those nuns telling me what I wasn't. I had to fight them and survive, and I did. And I'm here. So thank you for listening to me. That's my story.
So proud of Tina Knowles. And for those of us who've known her through a few of those chapters in her life, I have to tell you, she is stronger, prouder, more beautiful, and certainly even more of a leader today than she was a few years ago. So I love seeing her happy. And he is a big old fine thing. Let me just say that. And his last name is Lawson. So get with no here also. This is wonderful that you were willing to come out and share so much of your life. The other thing about